Alright, so the main claim today that I will be responding to is the claim that evolution is a more valid theory than creationism. The speaker used two supporting claims to reinforce his claim. These supporting claims were, one, that evolution is taught in school because it is a theory that has facts and science to back it up. It is not 100% fact, but it is the best logical explanation we have for how the world began. And secondly, creation has no factual evidence behind it. It is all speculation from the Bible. First, I'll be tackling the issue of his first supporting claim, which once again is evolution is taught in school because it's a theory that has facts and science to back it up. It is not 100% fact, but it is the best logical explanation we have for how the world began. In this claim, the speaker fails to clearly identify what the criteria are to be considered school. He does not specify whether he's referring to simply secondary schools, high schools, colleges, public or private schools. With this failure to clarify, one must assume he is referring to every institution served to teach. With this assumption, his claim becomes false, simply because creationism is taught in private schools across the country along with evolution. I can vouch for this because I attended a private high school where both theories were taught. Also, as a supporting point to his first supporting claim, the speaker used an example where he said, during the 19th century, sooty smoke from coal-burning furnaces killed the lichen on trees and darkened the bark. When moths landed on these trees and other blackened surfaces, the dark-colored ones were harder to spot by birds who ate them, and subsequently, they often lived long enough to reproduce over generations. The environment continued to favor darker moths. As a result, they progressively became more common. This may be a valid explanation and example of what evolution is and how it works, but the speaker failed to make a connection with this example and why evolution is taught in school, or how this makes evolution more logical than creationism, leaving this statement irrelevant to the point he is making. Also in his first claim, my opponent failed to acknowledge the actual reason creationism isn't taught in public schools. He made no mention of the Supreme Court case Edwards v. Aguilar, in which it was ruled unconstitutional for creationism to be taught with evolution in public schools because creationism looked to advance a particular religion. Therefore, this would violate a separation between church and state. Considering it is federal law for creationism to not be taught in public schools and has nothing to do with the validity of each theory, his first supporting claim can be seen as invalid to the argument he is making. Moving on to the second supporting claim, which is creationism has no factual evidence behind it, it is all speculation from the Bible. In this claim, the speaker fails to cite a reliable and accepted source, such as a scientist or researcher. All of the evidence given is purely opinion-based. For example, when the speaker said, "It is more difficult for me to believe that the entire universe was created in such a short amount of time compared to over the course of billions of years that evolution had to take place." Considering the speaker is not an expert in this field, all opinion-based statements can be considered invalid to the argument. Finally, the speaker fails to show sufficient evidence to support the validity of his argument and spends the majority of his speech defining evolution and creationism while giving no factual data to confirm the validity of evolution, which in the end makes his claim that evolution is a more valid theory than creationism flawed and impossible to confirm given the evidence shown. Thank you.
All right, the structural stuff is fine. On the first point, I think you've got a nice challenge about what you mean by schools, and there is an argument that it is in fact taught in schools. Then you have a claim that says that the reason it's not taught in all schools is that there's a potential for advancing a particular religion by doing so, and the courts have ruled that that would not be legitimate. I think this is an interesting argument to suggest that the reason that it's not taught has nothing to do with whether or not it's a valid theory, but rather that it's a theory that advances a particular point of view, and therefore the schools are trying to stay away from it. What's missing here, and on the second point, is any information to suggest the validity of creationism as a theory. It seems to me like you ought to be providing a little bit of evidence to suggest that the way it's taught in private schools, for instance, suggests that there is some validity to it, and especially because on the second point, you're challenging the advocates' lack of evidence on creationism not being anything more than opinion. That if you had something more than just opinion, you would be able to say, well, the advocate presented no evidence on this particular point, just their opinion, and I've given you the expertise of 3 scientists. I've given you some physical data that suggests this is true. I've shown you an explanation that uses a variety of physical evidence and statistical information to suggest that it's true. And even if you don't believe it's true, at least we know that there is a theory here that is being supported in some way, and therefore it might be justified to present in a classroom, compared to what the advocate presented, which was nothing. And it seems to me like you've got a good response. This would be the kind of response that you could give right after hearing the speech. I hadn't done any research. What can I do to challenge points? And it's okay, but I think you could be a little bit stronger. You had some time. You could have done some research. Lose the gum when you're giving the speeches. Okay. And the eval form is in here too? Yes, there it is. Okay. That's that other thing. Philip.